Good evening. My name is Jim Herring. We are very glad to have you join us this evening. Please know, as we get started, this is the first time we've ever done this. So we could have some snags, we could have some things that happen. So please just bear with us. We're glad that you have chosen to join us for Reconcile Richmond, Bridging the Gap of Division. Over the past couple of weeks, not just our own city, but all over our country, we have seen unrest, we have seen differences of opinions expressed in different ways. Some of them make us happy, some of them get us upset. One of the things we're trying to do here today is to give you a chance to actually vocalize things that have made you upset and what you hope to, what kind of a solution we can offer you in regards to solving that issue. A lot of times people don't take the time to think about exactly what it is they may be protesting or exactly what the message is that they're trying to get across to people through postings on social media, through videos that they do, through TikTok things. We want to make sure that you're first of all thinking about what your desired objective is, and then make sure that you are paying attention to what would solve your problem. And that's what we're going to try to work toward through this evening. We've got people joining. Some people are going to be joining us through a Zoom meeting. Some people are joining us just watching us on your television screen or on your computer screen. If you're doing that, please make sure you know you do have the option to chat. There's a chat option there. Just click on that and you can type in whatever kind of comment you have or question. We really want to stick with the format of this as being you identifying what your issue is that you are maybe upset about, or maybe even that you've seen something positive happen over the past couple of weeks, and also what your desired solution is if you do have an area of opportunity. We love our city and we love our state and we love our country. We all hopefully have this in common. As a matter of fact, I've found we have way more in common than we have different. This is not about a particular political side. It's not about gender. It's not about sexual preference. It's not about religion. It's not about race. This is about human beings. And that's what I am hoping to accomplish tonight. Tonight I'm joined by Ariane, and we're glad to have you here. And Ariane, you live in Richmond right now. Tell me why you've chosen to make Richmond your home, and tell me some of your thoughts about what's been going on over the past week and a half, if you would.
Sure. So Richmond is dear to me. My family's here. I didn't grow up here, but I live here now, and Richmond is my home. And, I have brothers growing up in here, and I just want to make sure that it's a great city for them to grow up in. And as you said, a lot of things going on, a lot of feelings and frustration. But what we really want to do here is figure out how do we turn those feelings into actions, right? So we can scream and yell and cry, but what we really want to do is figure out a way to move us forward. Like you said, bring up solutions, air out our grievances and things of that nature, but how do we really put a plan in place to get us to move forward together?
And that's exactly what we're all here for, I hope. Please make sure when you're leaving a comment, when you happen to ask a question, we want to make sure we respect everybody. We are not here to attack anybody. This is not a format for that. This is not a venue for you to promote a particular political position or anything like that. This is just about human beings listening. Far too often, I think politicians come in with an answer without ever even asking what the question was. Imagine, if you will, if politicians put up a sports facility in a particular community here in Richmond. Maybe they build a tennis court, a tennis facility, and it's beautiful. But they never bothered to ask the particular community what it is that they need, what it is that they want. Maybe they need their roads paved. Maybe they need the asbestos removed from the schools where their children attend. Maybe those things are better asked and listened to rather than dictated upon people. I think one of the frustrations that I've seen in talking to people is that many people just feel like they've never been heard. Do you feel that same way as well?
I think so. I think we talk and we listen to respond versus listening to understand. And that's what we're trying to do here, is really listening to understand, not just to respond, not to just throw out answers, but to really understand where we're all coming from and then to really move forward together.
For years I was paid to talk, and tonight we're not going to be doing as much talking, we're going to start listening. And that's the purpose of Reconcile Richmond. So right now, we want to go to one of our slides. We have had several people throughout the past week who've left comments and concerns of their own. So if we could, we're going to put one of them up right now, and we're going to hear from that person and see what their concern is at this time. By the way, we will just be using first names as we talk to people. We've asked people to just use first names. Again, we want to make sure everybody feels comfortable in this environment. And again, if you have any comments, if you're watching online, make sure you are leaving any comments, any questions, any concerns. And preferably, if you have a concern, make sure that you are also leaving a possible solution there for you as well. Again, this is the first time we've ever done this, so we're all sort of learning in this particular process, and we hope to have several of these types of forums as we go through. Right now, we're going to hear from Mary from Richmond. Why don't you, if you can read that one, can you read that?
Sure, it says, I am white, but is this yours?
Oh, that's right. I am white, but I know the statues hurt my black friends. Take the monuments down, and that's from Mary from Richmond. And Mary, we appreciate you taking the time to express yourself with that particular comment, and also a solution that might satisfy you. I'm sure that you're probably not the only person that feels that way, but as we know, there's people who have all kinds of different feelings all over. I tell you what, why don't we take one of our people from you want to go ahead and take that one?
Sure, so we're gonna hear from Jackie. She is on our Zoom, and we're gonna queue her up now.
Now, Jackie's with us, I think, on the phone through Zoom, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
And Jackie, we're
sure,
glad you're here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we have it, Jackie.
Okay, good. So my concern, I'm going to just share what my concern is right now, as well as what I think, from my perspective, we need to, at least one thing that I think we need to do. And I'm concerned that a lot of what has transpired in the past few weeks since the death, the very, very tragic and horrid death of George Floyd in the hands of a police officer, just awakened our conscience, our collective conscience. But more than that, I think it awakened the individual conscience of individual Americans. It's like people who had been very, very much in the dark as to the experience and the things that cause a lot of pain within the Black community, for example.
No.
It became clear that just watching that video opened the eyes and the hearts of people in ways that I don't think anything else has in the past several decades. And it made what most Black people have been saying become very, very raw and real. Now, having said that, obviously there's been a lot of anger and all that stuff, but my concern is that the activities that are needed and the conversations that we need to have in order to move towards healing and reconciliation, I feel like that message is being drowned out still by the raw anger and the things that we are doing, the way that we've responded, protesting, which is, it's good to protest. But like Jim, I like what you said about figuring out what's the objective before protesting. And that's been kind of the question that has been on my mind. What is the objective? What is my objective? What do I want to see out of this? It's a very painful situation, but I want to find healing. And I believe that most of us, even those who are marching and are angry and are sad and are hurt, all of us are hurt. We want to find healing. So, and I think what America has done through this incident is that most of America has heard the voice and the cry that has been going on for a long time. Now, the question is, what are we going to do? My thing would be, I want to know, who do I need to hear me? Before I protest, before I do anything, I want to know, okay, I want to be heard. Who needs to hear me? And what do I need them to do? Like, what message do I need them to get? And how should they respond? And so the challenge for us right now is that in 2020, no one is supporting any racist laws. And I don't know that we have any racist laws on the books. And I know if we find them, nobody is going to be supporting those. They're going to be struck out. And that is what I haven't heard much of, is what are the specific laws that we want to strike off the books? And then how do we move forward? I think we need to have conversations one-on-one, like the one we're having right now. I think this is the way to solve this problem. And everybody has to do the hard work. that is needed to discard negative stereotypes, racial stereotypes, and the prejudices that brought us to where we are. I think every one of us has to do that work, no matter who you are, no matter what ethnicity you are, because I think that is what is
And
stirring,
Jackie,
that has been stirring.
as we wrap things up, we appreciate you taking the time to express yourself and your feelings. We want to make sure everybody is expressing their feelings and has an outlet for that. So thank you so much for joining us and being a part of that. It really means a lot.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments online yet that we need to get to? Or, okay, don't forget, if you are online following us there and you would like to make a comment, if you'd like to ask a question, we would love for you to be a part of that. And just check that out. In the meantime, why don't we go to another slide if we could, Gary? And this one is from Reggie, and I think Reggie lives right down there in the VCU area. Reggie says he's a business owner in downtown Richmond whose business was looted. He said he wants the police to be better prepared for these types of situations in the future. And Reggie, I think there's probably other business owners down there who feel the same way, and we appreciate you expressing that. We plan on at some point in time making sure we assimilate these questions, assimilate these comments, and I don't know, I haven't had a chance to really talk to a lot of businesses. I've heard some interviewed on radio shows and things like that. Have you had a chance to see some of that and hear from some people?
I have seen it. I haven't talked to anybody personally, but like you said, we do want to collect all of these concerns and comments, and eventually we want to get to a place where we're providing resources so that you're talking to the right people, so that the police are being heard or your local representatives are being heard. So thank you again for sharing all of your comments. We do, again, want to take all of this. It's the initial one, but we want to get the conversation going, but we do want to take some of this and start getting resources back to you as well.
And we want to make sure that you know how to contact your representatives. First of all, we want to make sure you know who your representatives are. We want to make sure you know how to contact them. We want to make sure you know how to find out where Board of Supervisors meetings are being held or the City Council meetings are being held. And we also want to make sure you know how your voice can be heard at those particular meetings. Each one of them do allow constituents to speak, but there is a process you have to go through, and we're happy to do that. Right now, I think we're going to go to Amanda on Zoom. And Amanda, we appreciate you being a part of this. Please, just so you guys know, we're sort of new at this. We can't hear what you're doing, but the production people can hear what you're saying. So they're going to listen and relay that back to us as much as possible. So if you don't see us nodding in agreement or saying things, it's because we can't hear what you're saying right now, but everybody else can. So I just wanted to explain that. So Amanda, we'd love to hear from you right now.
In regard to the question, to see the looting, no one wants to experience damage to businesses, damage to storefronts, but that is one of the stages of grief. I feel that, looting doesn't happen every day. We see it when the pot boils over. And that's what we're experiencing right now. The pot has boiled over, and it's just one of the ultimate reactions.
I appreciate both of y'all we can now hear you, so that's good. And we appreciate both of y'all taking the time to express things and also expressing what a proposed solution would be. I hope that everyone understands the exercise of protest does bring about change at some point in time. I think we can all use, there's different types of protests and things such as that, and it's not up to me to determine what's an appropriate protest, what's not an appropriate protest. I think everybody needs to sort of follow their heart in regards to that. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I mean, and like we talk, peaceful, right? Like we want to be peaceful, and we also want to be purposeful, right? No matter what we choose to do, we need to know why we're doing it, and we really need to understand the impact of what we're doing. So for some, it may be the peaceful protest and, you know, just showing up. For others, it may be donating to different causes, but if we really need to know the why behind what we're doing, and again, it needs to be peaceful and it needs to be progressive too. We need to be moving towards something. So it'll look different for everybody, but if we all do something, we can all move through this together.
And thinking about outcomes, like you had suggested, the GoFundMe options. I think making sure that we are focused on exactly what it is that we're trying to accomplish with this, and choose the right method to do so, and also make sure we know where the finish line is. It's sort of hard to finish the race without knowing where the finish line is. So again, Amanda, to both of y'all, we really appreciate y'all being a part of this, and hopefully being a part of the solution. And hopefully you feel that your voice has been heard. I think a lot of people are frustrated when they don't feel like nobody's ever listened to them. People have always dictated to them what's going to be done. And I think it's absolutely vital that we listen and start that process with listening. That's why this is step one, is listening. So again, thank you for being with us. Right now, let's see. We've got DS. DS has said he's never felt racism until he ran for public office. And I find that a lot of people have probably identify with that as well. I'd love, if you have a chance to type back a response to this, I would love to know a little bit more about how you felt about that and what you think could have been done differently for you to maybe have been perceived in a different way. Because it's hard for me to assume how you were treated differently or that experience of racism just from running for office. I can assume all kinds of things, but that doesn't mean that's what that identifies with you. So if you have an opportunity to respond to that, we'd love to hear more from you, and we appreciate it. And again, anybody who happens to be watching us online, please make sure that you feel free to comment on there as well.
Okay, thank you. We are going to go over back to Zoom. We have Eric online.
Is an extremely valuable conversation that has been alluded to in past elections, but has not been but has not been
that's
discussed
peace.
as much as
Also,
it needs
he's
to be.
somebody I wanna hear,
And so, and that needs to be a conversation that needs to take place often, and looking
Come
at,
back on the full screen so we don't
is
see.
the equality there in education? Absolutely not. I can tell you that from experience, it's not. And how do we make that happen? And how do we make the equitable, but also the educational system and the educational programs that we're providing are multicultural, are multi-perspectives, allow for opportunities for those communities to influence the education that they're receiving as well. So I think, if we don't have those things where we can live our lives, we can be free, and we can pursue our own happiness, then we're missing the whole point of this social contract that we have.
Eric, I appreciate your input on that, and I'm going to say something. First of all, I appreciate you having a dual set of input from an entrepreneurial standpoint and also from an educating standpoint. First of all, I want to tell you about a personal experience I had with a particular school in Richmond, Crestview Elementary School, right on Horsepen and near Horsepen and Broad. Years ago, I went in there and I was so overwhelmed by walking in the door. I knew it was a very culturally diverse school. I believe it's probably, at the time, it was probably one of the most culturally diverse schools in Henrico County anyway. And I walked in and they had these murals painted all over the walls of kids from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, all different garb and things like that. It was absolutely beautiful when I walked in. And we actually adopted that school for my work out, the place where I was working at the time. We adopted the school, learned more about the cultural diversity, and we started doing a Heritage Day. Once a year, we would have Heritage Day. We wanted these kids to feel proud of their background. They were proud to be an American, and I think that's excellent. Of course, that's what we all are, I hope, is Americans first. But being proud of your heritage, I happen to be part Italian, and being proud of your heritage is something that makes you feel special. It makes you feel accepted as well when we can all accept all different types of heritage. And these kids got to display a flag from the country where their family originated from. They got to make a dish, a cultural dish from there. Their parents were there. They got to hand out flyers and brochures from that country. And they all, when you looked around that room and you saw the pride on those kids' faces, it was absolutely beautiful. And I don't see any reason why we can't push for doing something such as that in all schools. I want everybody. Bullying is obviously a problem we have in many schools, and I think bullying would be reduced too if we could all just feel proud of our background. How do you feel about that?
I think so, and giving people the opportunity, right, and to create an atmosphere of acceptance, if that makes any sense, similar to what you're saying. And I think that we all need to play a part in that. So whether it's a month, a day, a week, whatever it is, I think we need to be used to creating atmospheres of acceptance.
Absolutely, and I think what we have now is a culture of exclusion. If we experienced cliques in high school and things like that, but when we got to be adults, we sort of figured that we would be accepted for the work we've done, for the body of work, for the quality of human being we are, for the parent that we might be, and unfortunately, it's just not so. Many times you were judged by your socioeconomic status, and unfortunately, whether people admit it or not, many people are judged based on the color of their skin, or the type of hair that they have, or the type of clothes that they wear. And hopefully we can try to break some of that down and make everybody feel comfortable. I know for me, I grew up in the west end of Richmond, and I went to a high school of about 2,000 people. And in that 2,000 people, there were very few minorities there. And I really thought that was the real world. I really did. And then I went to VCU, and I was just amazed. I loved the fact that there were people of all different ethnicities, all different backgrounds. There were people from Russia, people from Czechoslovakia, people from Kenya, people from all over. And it was excellent. So again, Eric, I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. And I hope that both educational and entrepreneurial people will feel like they have a chance to stand up, be heard, and will accept people from all different areas. Ariane, I think we've got somebody on the slide. Do you want to read that if you can? Oh, you can't see? Okay. Well, I'll read it. This is from Chandra in Churchill. And Chandra, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Chandra says, I love my neighborhood, but oftentimes when I leave my house, I feel as if the police are watching me to see if I mess up. I certainly don't feel as if they're protecting me. I suggest community meetings with the police to hear from neighbors and to get to know area officers. Chandra, I think that is a
great suggestion, and I know that we have, and I don't know how far it goes beyond, we have the National Night Out, right?
Yeah, yes.
I think that's, what is that, one time a year?
Once a
or
year,
something like
yes.
that, but maybe we can increase some of those types of events so that we're getting to know the officers are getting to know the citizens, and break down some of those barriers. I
think that's a great way to do it, because I remember growing up, we knew a lot of the police officers that came in our area. We knew them, and they knew who we were. And when we were doing something wrong, they made sure that we got it scooted along. I'm telling you what, my father is who I feared more than anybody when it came to that kind of thing. So I think getting to know your officers, getting to know your police, and understanding that they're friends. I can certainly tell you that when I watched the video of George Floyd being crushed to death, I did not feel that those police officers were there to protect or serve anybody. And that was horrifying to watch. It wasn't about his skin color. It wasn't about anything to me other than the fact that this man was crushed. And then as I started to listen to other people, I realized the color of his skin did affect other people. It did make a difference to other people. And that helped educate me a little bit and open my ears up a little bit. And I think we actually were unified in that particular time period. As we all watched in horror, unfortunately, we couldn't come together from that point and start making some changes. Unfortunately, some people chose different routes, and peaceful protesting is good. Throwing a trash can through a local business window probably is not going to get your voice heard and your process done. So, Chandra, we appreciate that. I think several people probably can identify with your comment, and we appreciate you taking the time. Also, while we have this moment, I want to make sure that you know we do have a Facebook page. You can go on Facebook, just look for Reconcile Richmond, and we have information up there. We'll let you know about future broadcasts, future things that we're having. I don't know if they've got this queued up yet, but I think now would probably be a good time. We have a video that I came across this video, and Ariane had seen this video as well. We thought it was very powerful, and it's powerful in just helping you to understand that we all have so much more in common that we have different. So we're gonna listen to this gentleman right here, if you would, please.
I spend almost every Sunday morning teaching kids in Sunday school. I am often asked if I am Muslim. I'm okay with that. I'm pretty much convinced if you met my mother, you'd automatically become a better person. My father is a medical. He taught me how to say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, to everyone that I meet. I don't hate
think that video is quite powerful. And I hope you took the time to actually pay attention to what he was trying to say. Stereotypes get in the way a lot of times. And I tell you, the best way to get to know somebody is to listen, ask questions, allow them to speak.
Yeah, and just invite people in.
Yeah.
Invite people in, invite people over, and just be open. And what do we say? Assume positive intent too, right? Like, think the best about someone before you just automatically assume the worst. So.
I think that's a part of our culture as well. I think a lot of times people assume the worst. And we did have a message from Ross. You want to read what he had to say over there?
Sure. So Ross says, how do we carry the message the last mile? So we were talking a little bit before about, you know, how do we really impact our circles of influence, right? So we might not all be able to change the world. Again, we don't want to be out there protesting. We might not have money to give and things of that nature, but how do we impact our communities? How do we impact our local circles of influence, whether that's volunteering, whether again, it's just walking over to someone and saying hi, inviting people over and things. How do we open up our own selves? And I think we really all have to own this reconciliation, right? It's going to take all of us, but I think that we all need to figure out a way to make this better and just continue it on. And I hope this is not trendy, you know, it's the thing for right now. It is going to take time, and it is going to require us to keep going until we get to the finish line, and we are really reconciled, not just as a city, but as a nation.
It's funny because when you look at the word reconcile, when we were, let me tell you a little bit of history about how we sort of started this, is when we were watching, when I was seeing people posting about the death of Mr. Floyd and the murder of Mr. Floyd and how people felt about that, I reached out to a gentleman who I've known for a long time, a man I respected, I knew was also had Christian beliefs, as did I. We had a lot of things in common, but there was a lot of things we couldn't, you know, we're very far apart on. And I challenged him to join up with me, to reach out to me, and he did. And we spent time talking about this, and we spent time listening to each other and concerns with each other. We were different in many ways, but we realized we have so much more in common. And what we're hoping to do tonight is hopefully set a tone for our society as a whole, to reach out to each other, to grab hold of each other as neighbors, as human, as friends, and just be a part of that solution. I want to read right now, this is where we came up with the name of Reconcile Richmond, is the very nature of the definition of the word reconcile, and we don't have it on a slide, but I'm going to read it real quick. Reconcile is to restore friendly relations between, to cause to coexist in harmony, to make or show compatible, similar, harmonize, synthesize, make congruent, cause to be in agreement, balance, make consistent with another, especially by allowing for transactions begun but not yet completed. We haven't gotten to the finish line. We got a long way to go. We're barely getting out of the starting blocks, but we can do this. We can work together to make this happen. We've got somebody else on Zoom too who's anxious to talk.
Yes, we do. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Monique on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. What would you like to share with us today?
Thank you for having me. I think the thing we need to understand is that this is 400 years or more of an issue. This actually started long before that, when they came to the United States and took over for a group of people, and slaughtered, murdered, and took over their land. That's when this started. So if we really want to look at history, look all the way back to the very beginning of when this started, and know that this isn't a race. A race is something we're trying to do fast and quick, and we want answers now and solutions now, and this is going to take time. And the more time we put into it and the more effort we put into it and the more active work that we do towards it, then we can get to a point where we own our differences and can work to reconcile. The goal is not to necessarily have a same way of thinking and same mindset. We need those differences, but we have to be open to hearing each other and listening to those differences and accepting that your viewpoint and my viewpoint might be different, but we're still human beings. And we still have, like Eric said, those same rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You know, that statement wasn't necessarily written for people who look like me. And when they brought my ancestors over, they weren't considering what that would do for them or how that would impact them, because they were considered less than. And I think that mindset has also trickled down into some people today. It's still there. And so we have to have an overhaul completely of not just the system, not just the laws, but mindsets have to be changed. Mindsets within ourselves have to be reconciled. I have to look at myself and say, what things do I judge others on instantly when I meet them, or instantly when I'm talking to them? Because we all have our own preconceived notions and judgments that we pass on other people. And it isn't until we pause and listen, like we've all said, that's the only time we're going to start to understand.
That's some powerful stuff right there. That is powerful stuff, and I love the statement that you made in regards to it's not all about laws, it's about a mindset. And I could not agree with you more. And I think that's what we're trying to do tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't really legalize humanity.
That's right. You can't dictate that. You can't legislate that.
It starts with each one of us, and this is a difficult conversation to have, and I think that we need not to run away from it, but we need to embrace it, and we need to see this as an opportunity to grow as individuals, as counties, as cities, as organizations, as all this stuff. Like, we need to really face this thing head on if we're gonna move forward, right? So I know it's uncomfortable, but we can't shy away from it and just kind of turn a blind eye to what's going on when we know people are hurting, and it's so uncomfortable. I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do. Sometimes it's a simple, how are you doing? And then just let the person talk. Like, you don't even have to say anything. It's just the fact that you reached out and said, hey, how are you dealing with this whole situation, right?
There's that listening stuff again. That seems to be a common theme, And, another thing that I think is really exciting is to hear Eric and hear you as well talk about the Constitution. One of the things that Ariane and I were talking about is the Constitution. I usually keep a copy in my pocket at all times. And a lot of people have no idea that the Constitution is so small, so little, you can hold it in the palm of your hand, and everything is right here. Everything you need is right here. And most of us have never read it. Have you read the Constitution? I'm asking every single person who happens to be listening and watching, have you read it? If you haven't read it, I suggest you do, because it doesn't give us the right to assemble. It gives us the right to peaceably assemble. And sometimes, unfortunately, when we have the media, when we have blogs that people think are facts, when all they are just simply somebody's opinion, that's not fact. Read the facts for yourself. They're available for you. If you don't have one, I promise you, listen, I'll tell you what, why don't you message the Reconcile Richmond page, and we'll get you a copy of the very one that I have in my pocket. I promise, we'll get it to you, no charge. We'll make sure that you get it, okay? I want everybody to have one. So make sure you go to Reconcile Richmond on Facebook and just send us a message requesting one. We're going to need your name and address, but we will make sure that you are mailed one. I want you to have that available and at your hand. So thank you so much for your comments. That was a really powerful stuff there.
Thank you. And I mean, I think that one of the things that we're trying to do is really, we all own this, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not for a president to solve. It's not for the police to solve. Like, all of us as citizens, we own this responsibility of making this a great place to be, right? Making
Absolutely.
this a great city to be, making this a great country. Like, we all own this. It's not on one person to make us move forward. Like, we have to do this together.
And that brings up a really good point too. I think our society, unfortunately, is very focused on blame. Each president blames the previous president. It has happened for ever since I've been alive, at least. They blame the previous president for problems. I don't really care who's to blame. I care about solutions. One of the things we talked about before, we don't even use the word problem, we use the word area of opportunity. Any issue is an area for us to grow, an area for us to heal, an area for us to improve. And that's what that's about. Let's go right now up to the screen. You want to read what Jamal has to say there? Okay, if you can read it. She's got a poll in front of her face. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. It says, as a black man who's affected by this, the real root is just pain at the end of the day. I want people to wake up about what's happening out there. And again, that's Jamal. He lives in Creighton Court. I think that's absolutely a powerful message as well. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people can relate.
And it's going on what we're saying. People want to be heard and people want to be listened to, right? Because again, we can sit there and you're talking to me and I'm ready to respond. I'm like, ooh, I don't agree with that. And I got my answer ready and I don't even know what you said. I have no idea what you just said because I was focused so much on how I was going to respond to you that I didn't really listen. And it's just being quiet. It's let me just sit here and process what you're saying before I respond to somebody. So I think we want to continue to hear people, and that's why we created this format. We want to hear from you, and we also want to come up with solutions and provide resources. Like you said, I was one of the people who I was like, I don't know that I know the Constitution,
Shame on you.
but I'll be one of those people to take one. But we need to know our rights, right? Like we talked about that before we came on. I think Eric mentioned it. Do we really know what our rights are as citizens? How many of us can
How are you going to exercise them without knowing what they are?
Yeah.
I mean,
again, opportunities, right? Like we
right.
should be growing and learning through all of this in a lot of different ways, and I hope that we do.
I think oftentimes people just don't even seek. They don't bother to seek the solution. They don't even know what the solution would take care of them. We've got DJ who has left a comment on our page there. It says, "How do whites deal with guilt of the past? How can we be more empathetic?" Well, I think a lot of people ask that question, and we're not really going to be. The purpose of this format is not to necessarily address things, but I do want to address that, and I want to make it very clear. I'm going to address it from me personally. I speak for no one but me. One of the things that we determined right from the beginning, we've never walked a mile in anybody else's shoes. I've never been you. I have no idea what it's like to be you. I've never experienced what you've experienced, nor have you experienced what I've experienced. And each of us make decisions based on our own personal experience. So for me, in dealing with that, one of the things that's very important to me is that we never, ever, ever forget that at one point in time, it was okay for people to own another human being. I find it repugnant and disgusting. I can't believe that human beings ever felt that way, especially when you consider it was not that long ago. I mean, that is seriously appalling to me, and it still goes on. I happen to see a report out of Libya right now where they still sell black males. They still sell people. And I don't hear people screaming about Libya. I personally don't know much about Libya and what's going on with that, but I heard that. I have not verified that yet. I want to make sure I make that clear, but I heard that, and that was certainly of concern to me. We certainly need to make sure that it's not going on, and I'm talking about slave trade, I'm talking about sex slaves, I'm talking about anything. We need to stop this. Now, the way I reconcile this in my own life is, I grew up differently than everybody else. I went to a high school, we're the rebels. I mean, we took Confederate flags to the games. They played Dixie after every single touchdown. And I was not aware at that time that anybody had any issue with that. I wasn't. If they did, they didn't feel comfortable enough to discuss it, and I could probably understand why, because there weren't probably 6 African Americans in a school of 2,000 people. I can sort of understand as an adult now why that might be a little uncomfortable to talk about in high school when you're so outnumbered. I want people to feel free to talk, and I want them to know I'm listening because I've never been in your shoes. And to me, that's how I deal with things. I don't live my life feeling guilty because I've never committed that, but I live my life making sure that I lead my children by example. I make sure that my son has not seen racism, blatant racism. One of the things too, I want to touch on that subject too. I would like for everyone to get educated on what that word means. It gets thrown around in so many ways today. I want to challenge each and every one of you to look up what that means and understand real racism versus just hurling it out as some kind of a card to attack somebody with. Because I think it dilutes the whole meaning of the whole thing, and it dilutes what we're trying to accomplish right here.
Yeah, and I mean, along with racism, you have words like bias. You have words like prejudice, right? And they're similar, but they're not, right? And I think we all have our own biases. Some of us have prejudices too, but racism is kind of that far extreme, and really to know what those terms are and understand them before we say, hey, you're a racist, whereas, no, I'm just kind of biased towards blue because I like blue, you know?
Yes.
I'm not a racist towards red, I just like blue, you know? So it's just really understanding what those words are. And then if we're unclear, why don't we ask somebody? Right? It's so easy to assume, especially on social media. I myself can, you know, and one of the, I'm like, what did you really mean by that? Like, I don't know, right? You know, but other than, versus going to the person and saying, so what I heard was, is that what you meant? And
Right.
giving them the opportunity to clear it up. We just run with the story that we created our head, and this person is now really, really bad, and that's not even what they meant at all. So again, learning through this process how to communicate again, right? How do we really, and I mean talk, not texting, not social media, but really having real conversation like we are today.
Communication is a two-way process. Communicating is not you announcing and you standing up giving a speech. I've given a lot of speeches in my life. I don't call that communication. I'm communicating my point to somebody, but I'm not allowing them the opportunity to come back. So anyway, I want to, do we have another slide to put up as well? Do you want to, again, you can't read that one.
I can slide over.
Okay, you can slip on over here.
Deandra says, this is my community, this is where I live, this is where I shop and where I do business. It's sad to see our neighborhood burn and destroyed. We need justice, we need change. Agreed. That is a really good statement to make, and I think I myself, I'm saddened to see the businesses that were, you know, destroyed and kind of got caught in the crossfire of everything that was going on. Yes, you had people trying to be peaceful, and then you had other people who were not so peaceful, right? And innocent businesses and livelihoods were caught in that crossfire. So yes, we need change, and we need to do that in a peaceful and productive manner. So
I think it's important for people to understand the definition of insanity. Insanity is simply doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think if you want change, one of the things I challenge each one of you to do as well is to look at your own actions that you've taken throughout your life that seem to be the same actions over and over and over. And then you're wondering why things haven't changed. They change by getting active and doing things like this and being a part of it. Not just sitting in front of the camera, but sending your comments and joining in on Zoom or whatever. That's part of it. But think about your loudest voice for change. How do you exercise that loud voice? And most importantly, educate yourself on all the facts before you start thinking that you have all the answers. That's a big part of it as well. Let's go, Amanda's on Zoom, and Amanda, we'd like to hear from you again, if we could, please.
Zoom up.
Amanda, I promise we'll get to you. We're all sort of doing this for the very first time, so we're learning as we go. And again, don't forget to go to our Facebook page. Make sure you look up Reconcile Richmond, and you'll find our Facebook page there. Please know we welcome comments anytime. You can send them. We do ask that you remember what the purpose of the organization is and the purpose of the page, and it is to make sure we have positive, constructive dialogue on this. And I could hear you a little bit there, Amanda. So,
yeah, I'm sorry. I thought Sharon was going to speak because I know she hasn't spoken yet. But I am more than welcome to answer.
Yeah, I haven't spoken yet.
Yeah, I'll let you go, Sharon.
Okay, we're going to go to Sharon. Sharon?
Good evening.
Hey, how are you doing? There you are. Good to see you.
Good to see you. It's Sharon.
Sharon, thank you for being with us.
Yeah. So my perspective comes from a single mother of a Black male. And my perspective is, my question is, how do I move forward with him with his concerns of what's right, what's wrong when interacting with a police officer? I feel like I've given him the tools to get home if he's ever pulled over and not treated in the right way. But it looks to me from what we saw on TV that even if you do the right things, it may not end up in a positive result. So my thing is, what do we tell our youth? Look to our youth. He also asked me, Mom, why now? Why is this so big? Why is this the change? Why Why is it now that things are so big when it comes to this issue? And I said it was all the time. I think somebody else said a melting pot, like it's boiled over. I think the time was now. Enough has been enough. Also, that we're going through a pandemic right now. People are quiet and they're listening, and they're more in tune with what's going on socially instead of their businesses, and they just have more time to really invest in this civil unrest right now. And so that's why we see as many protesters, we see as many people being interactive and going through this with us. I feel that's a good thing, but I don't want it to end because we go back to work. I don't want it to end because the officers get charged and they end up being sentenced. I want it to continue, and we need to look to the youth because they're what matters. A lot of us older people, we're set in our ways, we're not going to change, but the youth have so much to say, and I don't always see them being able to speak. And I know our previous president, Barack Obama, he said, look to our youth, and what can we do to help them, because they're our future.
Sharon, we appreciate your comments, and as a mother, we appreciate your work with your children as well. It is difficult in how to tell them things. When I was being raised, as far as like being pulled, if we were pulled by a police officer or something, and I believe it was very difficult to hear you, and I apologize from our end, but I believe one of your concerns was, what do you tell your kids in that kind of situation? My father always told me and made sure that I remembered that the time for arguing is in the courtroom. And so, and keep in mind, I'm not African American, so I haven't experienced the same kind of situations that some people have. But he definitely taught us to do that. Even in driver's ed, a long time ago. I went to high school a long time ago, but I remember Ms. Caskey at Douglas Freeman. She taught us that if you're pulled at night, the first thing you should do is turn on your overhead light. Okay? Take your keys out of the vehicle and put them on the dashboard, and just keep your hands in the 10 and 2 position until they come over and ask you for anything further. Now, will that work for everybody? Obviously, it doesn't work for everybody. Obviously, we've seen evidence that being cooperating and being, but I think we need to make sure we focus on not anomalies. And I don't have statistics here to know how many people have been treated this way by police or that way by police. To me, the only acceptable number is 0. Nobody should be treated differently. Nobody should be treated like Mr. Floyd. So, did you want to address some of that, Ariane?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. Like, I don't have the answers either, right? But one of the things that we want to figure out is, okay, so who do we talk to get more information about that? Do we talk to the local police chief or something like that? What should we be telling? I mean, they're in this field. This
right.
is their playground and what have you. So how do we engage with them and say, hey, if I get stopped, what is the right thing to do? Because some people, they have been taught, some people, they have not been taught, and they're scared, right? So people respond out of fear, and next thing you know, a whole situation has happened that didn't need to be. So is there a way to really engage with some officers to, how do we train your citizens on how to respond? And then if someone doesn't respond correctly, whether it be the police officer or the citizen, then what is the right protocol, and how do we hold both accountable?
I think it's very important for us to, I think that's exactly why that we need to have that dialogue, and the police are really the only people who can answer the question correctly. Chandra, in my opinion, they're the only ones who can tell us how we should behave when pulled, what we should do if this particular thing happens or that. So we will definitely be taking, what we wanted to do with this evening is to make sure we listen. The first step was listening. I think everybody involved in the planning of this realized that listening was the first step. Now, it doesn't end with that. I always tell people you have to take a stand, but you got to move to make something happen. It's not enough to just take a stand, and that's what we want to do. We want to assimilate the concerns that you have. We want to assimilate the solutions that you have. We hope to have another one of these types of forums sometime soon, and we hope to be able to assimilate a panel that can discuss these a little bit further, and eventually we want to bring in some local officials like police officers and the chief of police, maybe of Richmond or surrounding counties. Again, this is not about politics. It doesn't matter what political affiliation they have. But we definitely want to do that, and then we want to make sure you have the tools to equip you to really exercise your voice, both at the voting booth and also at city council meetings and other things like that. We hope you've enjoyed this evening like we have. It has been absolutely eye-opening to hear the different points of view expressed, and we want you to know that people do care. We all care about our community. We all love our state, and we all love our country. Let's focus on our similarities and the things we have in common, and let's take that and move forward. Again, thanks a lot for being a part of this broadcast of Bridging the Gap of Division from Reconcile Richmond. Go to our Facebook page and look for us, Reconcile Richmond. Thanks again for being with us.